Good morning, everyone. Now we're talking about the Jews going out of Egypt. And when the Jews got out of Egypt, they were called the hosts of God. And about 400 years later, 500 years later, came along Hannah. Hannah is the mother of the prophet Samuel Shmuel, that he's going to anoint King Saul and then afterwards King David. So Shmuel was basically like the first official prophet. And Shmuel prophesied also in this name Tzavaot, but it's different. When the Jews got out of Egypt, they were called Tzavaot Hashem, the hosts of God. That's not a holy word. That's not a holy name of God. Explaining something about the Jews. The Jews were called the hosts of God. And when Hannah said it, it was referring to a name of God. Said the Rebbe, which name of God? All the names of God are different aspects of God. That's the aspect of God that can wake up people that are totally distant from God and can even wake up the world, can reveal godliness in everything because God is creating everything and God is revealed in everything. That's why God creates everything with his word. God's words, because words have meaning. So everything in the world has meaning to connect us to the truth that they're being created by God for a reason. Okay. So it says that where does this power really come from? In the world, it comes from this name, Tzavaot, but really it comes from a source of godliness, which is above bad and above good. Therefore, it can come down godliness even into the lowest places and reveal that even the lowest places are also being created by God. For instance, Egypt, or the Jewish people after, in the time in the time of the temple, when the sins were rampant in those days. This is because the Jewish people, even though they was very holy, but God always makes things that as holy as they are, there has to be always an equal and opposite force. If not, there's no world. It's not a world. All this is going to basically change in the time of the Moshiach, but that's what we're working for. And the Rebbe talked about the ego gadol, what's called this level of godliness, which is before the world was created, before the world was created, pre world, and that is somehow or other brought into this low name, this name of God, which can come down low into the world, called Tzavaot. Okay, that's what it says. And this by the way, what we're learning here is a book which is called Torah Or, which was written by the first Rebbe of Chabad, Rabbi Shneur Zalman, that also wrote the book the Tanya. And it's all designed just to fulfill and manifest the purpose of Judaism, the purpose of creation, namely to bring the Mashiach and to make the world even better than it was before Adam ate from the tree. That we'll see that the world is this amazing gift. Everything in the world is just a gift being created all the time. It's just this amazing, incomprehensible, wonderful, beautiful miracle. Everything. And it's all created for a purpose, which is even a bigger miracle. But we don't feel that. That's called exile, called concealment. And therefore, you have to have a special name of God and empowerment in order to change that. And this is named Tzavaot. But all the Jewish people have this somehow. That's what it means. On that very day, when the Jews got out of Egypt, Yatz'u went out, called Tzavaot Hashem, all the armies of God, the hosts of God, the armies. Tzavaot Hashem, what does it mean? The hosts of God or the armies of God. We're talking about this more also in Bati Lagani, that we're going to learn soon, God willing. Who is Lashon Samuch? It is a language which is implying one thing is negated to the other. Should Tzavaot, like you said, the American army. What does it mean? That the army is secondary, it's devoted to and loyal to, and if you want to call it the united with, dissolved in America. America is the big thing, and and the armies are completely devoted to. It's just like a tool, a limb of America. Here we have the armies of God, Tzavot Hashem. These are armies which are nitfal, with the tfal, which are secondary, surrendered to L'Shem Habaya, to this name of Yud Ke Vav Ke, which we said that's the essence name of God. Of Enu Lashon Shem Tor, but it's not a name of God like Hashem Tzavaot, like it says, like we say, God, the God of hosts. This name Tzavaot is a holy name. Hashem Tzavaot is one of the names of God, the God of hosts. Here we're saying the hosts are the armies of God. Okay, the armies of God means that's talking about what? All the sparks of God, Hanit Boraru, which were refined, Begalut, in the time of exile of Egypt, Venit Alu, and they were elevated, Likalel, to be included, B'Shem Yud Ke Vav Ke, in the name Yud Ke Vav Ke, in the name of the essence of God. In other words, things in the world which were used properly that now do not disturb or contradict the oneness of God. They don't contradict the Creator. Oh, Haman, Nikran, they're called Tzivaot Hashem. All of these sparks, all of these units of meaning that the Jewish people used throughout the generations in order to serve God better, these are called the armies of God. Rapach Netzutzos, because there were 288 sparks that fell in the creation of the world, which is called the breaking of the vessels. Breaking of the vessels, we talked about this, was a special process by which God was able to make bad in the world, make evil, separateness in the world, breaking of the vessels. God wanted it to be that way. And from this breaking of the vessels, it says that fell sparks of meaning into the world. Sparks of meaning into the world. That's how there can be evil into the world. That's how evil can succeed in the world. That's how there can be temptations and bad things. These things have life, that people are tempted to steal money, right? The money has sparks in it that can tempt a person to do bad or tempt a person to do good, right? All these things in the world can be used for good or for bad. Clothes, garments can be used just to attract attention, or can be make it that a person can be presentable. You have a nice idea to present, you want to dress nice, or maybe it can be used just to lower people's goals. People look at garments, especially garments that are like see-through and things like that. Things people start thinking about themselves, what I can get. You can take these sparks of meaning and use them for what God wants, or you can use them for what you want, what the creation wants, separate from God. If you use them for what God wants, then that's called raising the sparks. All these sparks that fell in the Kabbalistically, somehow or other, comes out to 288 like the basic sparks that fell down, Netzutzot. And he says, when the Jewish people are in the world and they do with the world what God wants, or they're not tempted or intimidated or depressed by the world, that raises up sparks. It says that when the Jewish people were in Egypt, the suffering that they had, and nevertheless they still held on to their Judaism, that elevated 202 of the 288 sparks. In other words, there's left 86 sparks are left. And 86 happens to be the numerical value of nature, Teva, and also the nature of Hateva, it says, and also the numerical value of this name Elohim, Elohim, we say. In any case, when the Jewish people were in Egypt, they elevated 202 of these sparks. That's Sevaos. That's the hosts of God became elevated. Nitzutzot. And on this, no more. It says, it says that the Jewish people emptied out Egypt. Also, there's another. It says that Erev Rav Aloitam. It says the mixed multitude went with them. Erev mixed, and Rav means multitude. But the word Rav is the numerical value 202. That's the hints at these 202 sparks that went out. Because see, if it says Rav Lochem, Rav Loch, it says enough. Rav Loch, don't say this anymore. Rav is talking about the number 202. The parish, what does it mean? Sharak Tziva'ot Hashem, that the hosts of God, that's what Tziva'ot Hashem, that's what it means, the hosts of God. This is the sparks of, the Tziva'ot are the hosts of creations of God. These are these sparks, which are tuffle secondary, they're united, they're subservient, and some to the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. like the army of America, American army. The army is secondary to Inyan. It's like this. This whole number of 288 sparks that we got. These come from the names. Here we got a little hint at where it is. The names of God. And there are different ways of filling up. These are the names of God. Ayin base, Samach Gimel. Ayin base is 72. Here, let's add all these together. I never really did this actually. Here we got 72. Can we add them together? Let's here we go. I don't know if this works out. I think I did this once and it doesn't exactly work out. Here we go. It's some other way to go. Absa Magan Ban. But then you have to add on like the 5 here. Let's try it. Okay, here we go. 72 plus 63, that's Sag, plus 45 plus 52. 52. Okay, that's what we got. So let's see what's the grand total over here. We have 9, 12, 8, 14, 18, 23. Yeah, 23. And that comes out to be 242. Okay. And we have 242. Okay. So then how do we get Rapach 242? Right. I remember this. There's a way to do it. In any case, there's a way to make this calculation that it comes out to this. And also you add on the 5 Gavuras also of Hashem. I thought it's sort of embarrassing. I forgot how to do it. Okay, anyway, this number, how do they derive this number, 288 sparks? How do the Kabbalists derive this? That's what fell down. It says these are the various names, permutations of ways of spelling God's name. God's name is Yud, and then Hey, Vav, Hey, and you can spell it phonetically. Yud is 10, but if you spell it phonetically, Yud, Vav, Dalet, it's 20, and etc. How you fill up these letters, these 5 letters, you can get 4 different numbers: 72, 63, 45, and 52. Add all these together, and you also have to add something else also. I forget what it is. Anyway, you come out with this 88. These are names of God and aspects of God. So it ends up that all these sparks that fell are all aspects of God. And when they are refined from the creation, Bria, Yetzir, Nasira, Sia, that's spiritual and physical creation, Lachzor, the Shoshim, go back to the source, then they're not called in these names at all. They're not called by all these different names, Ayin, Ab, Sag, Man, Ban. They're included in their source, totally one. Lochi, and therefore, Eino Olu B'Shem at all. Therefore, it doesn't come to be the 288 anymore. There's not separation. That's what it means, elevating. They all become included in one. So the world doesn't look so separated. What's the example in this? I don't know if you've ever seen this before. There's some people, they take like beer cans or bottle tops or something like that, and they put them all together on a canvas, and they're sort of slanted a little bit. And you look at it, you don't see anything. It says, but then they turn the whole thing over and they slant it to a side, and all of a sudden you see there's a beautiful picture of the Eiffel Tower or the sunset over Jerusalem or something, right? Before, all you saw was 50,000 bottle caps or 50,000 cans of beer. But they turn the thing over and they put it at a certain slant, and all of a sudden you realize, wow, that guy was a genius. Look at that. You put these things and put it all together. It's the same thing with the world. The world seems to be everything separate, but if we turn it the proper way and use it the proper way, then we can see it's one big picture. That's the whole point. The world is one big, beautiful picture of godliness. So when the Jews got out of Egypt, so they refined 200, they put 202 of these beer cans or bottle caps or whatever, however you want to take the metaphor that I'm using. And they put them, all of a sudden you could see godliness in those. So what's the mashal? The mashal is like this. What does it mean? What's we're talking about? When a person thinks about the greatness of God, and you start to think, right? All right, we're talking here mystical stuff. The Jews got out of Egypt. There was a mystical purpose to it and spiritual, and they refined sparks. Good. Okay, this is very interesting. You show that the Torah is very interesting, and the story of going out of Egypt is much deeper than you think. But what's that got to do with me? So it's just like this. Listen. When a person thinks about the greatness of God, and you contemplate deeply. What does it mean, contemplate deeply? You have a question. Does God really exist? Maybe not. Maybe yeah. What? Vahasaga, and you understand. You start to understand God is really creating everything. Everything is different. How does He create this diversity? How? Maybe I'm also being created by God. Maybe I should change the way I act. Maybe it should be according to the Torah. Maybe the Torah is the thing that links all these things together. The Torah is the thing that turns this picture over and puts it the right slant. Azai then, nirgeshet hasaga, then when a person gets ideas, then the ideas, he thinks about God, then the ideas become a yesh v'davar, become a physical thing. You can write a book. You can write books. You can, like me, I can give classes. I understand certain things. I've been learning this a long time. Okay, but that's just it becomes another topic. It's a topic. It's an interesting Jewish, wonderful way of looking at the world. This is really very impressive, very impressive. It's a topic. But if I realize this is really talking about me and I become really surrendered to the Creator totally, then, 1 minute. As then, Enu Margish Hasaga, you don't feel the ideas. V'habitol bebechinas yesh. You don't feel negated b'davar ma. Ki im hu batal lagamri, he is totally negated to the reality. But tachlis habitol, beli hergesh kalal, and you don't feel yourself at all. You don't feel yourself at all. Let's say can we think of an example? Let's take a person. Let's say he's separated from his father, right? He was separated from his father in the Holocaust. His father protected him. They went into Auschwitz together. His father protected him, gave him his last bread, pieces of bread. He gave him his clothes, gave him his whatever it is he needed for this. And then they got separated. And now he is 40 years old, and his father must be 60 years old, but he was probably killed a long time ago. And he doesn't even remember his father. And then someone comes and says, "You remember your father?" No. He gave you his shoes in Auschwitz. Oh, yeah, really, he did. He gave you his last piece of bread. He protected you. He said he was going to go into the gas chambers instead of you, and he protected. Wow, my father really did that. And your father, he was really a very intelligent person. He was such a wonderful person. Wonderful things that he did. You start thinking about how great your father was when it becomes this idea, and this, right? And here he is. Here's your father. You see your father. Before the ideas were in your mind, you could write books, you could write songs. My father, I remember the beautiful things. But when he sees his father is right there, then there's no ideas and there's no song, there's no anything. He's just, my father, this is really him. Wow, that's it. You don't think about yourself, you don't feel yourself. There's no ideas, there's no songs, there's no nothing. The emotions are so real, it's beyond emotion. It's not something that you feel, it's a unity that is real. This is really my father. This is a thing. This is not incomprehensible. Here he is right here. He's totally negated. So it's the same thing. When we think about God and we think about all these, like that God is creating me and God is enlivening me and God is providing for me, and that these are wonderful ideas. And not only that, here's this Kabbalistic explanations about it. Is there was the Tzimtzum and there was this. So you have all these ideas in your mind. It's like somebody telling you about how great your father was. But then when you see and you feel, there he is, and then it's totally negated. So it is also these sparks of tohu that fell in the breaking of the vessels. They all have these different names. The names of all these things, ab, sag, ma, ban, whatever you do, a tree, a cat, a horse, an angel, all these things have names to them. They're all separate ones. Shemos. Shazam more, this indicates al yesh v'davar, that they are a separate thing, ad shenikra b'shem, until they're actually called by a name. Shazeu, this is a gilui l'zulaso, this is revelation to someone else. Kamo adam bifnei atzmo, like a person, when a person is on his own, he doesn't need any names. When does he need names? Rak shechavero kora b'shem, only when someone calls him by a name. That's when you need a name. In other words, you become a separate entity. It's like, take the example that I gave. I don't know if it's a good example, but I'll keep using it. You're alone. Someone comes up to you and says, you remember your father? It was 40 years ago. We were in the Holocaust. And, I was a young kid then. I don't remember so much about him. Never thinks about him. Never thinks about him, right? As soon as he starts explaining about his father, then there's a separate thing. Then his father becomes a real thing. His father is something real. And also his memory becomes a separate thing. My memory of my father, my thoughts of my father, it becomes two separate things. But as soon as it becomes unified, the makoro, tachlis, a bittul, then everything becomes what's called negated, and to become united with God. Azai enlem shemus maklal. Right? When this person actually sees his father, then his whole separate existence and his father's separate existence, they're not separate anymore. It's not an idea anymore. It's not like a name. It's something above words, above description. That's why, like today, they have this crazy woke movement, which if you look at it, the whole purpose of it is not to have children. When it boils right down to it, is that there's no children. Everything is for your pleasure, is for you this, and you have no children. You can have abortions, you can have this, not any good. Why? Because to them, having a child is a thing. It's a thing. It's a separate. It's an idea. Take it or leave it. They have no idea of surrendering yourself to your children, and the children surrendering themselves to their father. There's loyalty, unity, of losing your identity. I am. I think. I. Right? That's what this whole crazy movement that's sweeping across the world is based on. I think. I want. I. To lose this I to something greater than yourself, even if it's your child, it's incomprehensible. The unity. It's above understanding. You're not the boss anymore. That's the whole idea why the Jews are in the world, is to make the whole world like that. That we realize that the whole entire world is being created by God, by the Creator, all the time. Therefore, nothing in the world will have, so to speak, its own separate entity name. Therefore, the whole world will be called Tzavot Hashem. The whole world will be what's called the hosts of God. They'll be united with God. Shem Tfeilim, that there will be secondary and united and samuchim and nichlalim and included in the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. The examples I gave you are pretty weak because in the end, after all, a father and a son are separate. But the unity that there is between them, a father and a son, is indescribable. There's no a mother and a daughter, a mother and a son. It's the same thing, parents and their children. Just give an example. Because it's an unexplainable truth, right? It's an unexplainable, true, real thing that's above understanding. Above understanding, the unity between parents and children and parents, it's something true. It's true. It's above understanding. Let's I'll give you another example. Honesty. A person, honesty. You talk about honesty, you have philosophy of honesty, and there's ethics and this and honesty. What is honesty? Is the honesty? And a person talks about honesty, gives classes about honesty, but all of a sudden he has a chance to steal like $1 million. He gets a bribe. A bribe for $1 million, nobody's going to know. They put it in a Swiss bank account under some other assumed name and something like that, and a good friend can take it out. Whatever it is, he gets it. Right now, you talked about honesty was an idea, right? Are you going to surrender yourself to honesty or not? Right? The idea was an idea. If you surrender yourself to honesty, you start losing your identity. I had a chance to be a big shot. I could have $1 million. I could buy myself a new car, a new this. I could impress the people with it, right? That's the whole world is supposed to be surrendered to the truth, because honesty is truth. Also, a truth is that God is creating everything, and that God is creating everything because he wants us to use it properly. And when we do, that elevates it. That name, ability to elevate everything, that was originated when the Jewish people got out of Egypt, and they were called the Tzivot Hashem. They were called the armies of God. The parish, that's what it means, that God took the Jews, Tzivot, the Jewish people, out of Egypt. The souls, the Jewish people, they are above all of these sparks. Above these, the hosts are the sparks that they made, that they refined. The Jewish people are above that. They have the ability to elevate it. Which that, by the way, is also in the news today, right? The land of Israel, it's a holy land. That's what it means. It's holy. It has the ability to unify the whole entire world. And it's only for the Jewish people who are holy. The problem is the Jewish people have to start acting holy, but they will, because it's there, 100%. Good. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Let's start the next. We'll start the next one. Because tomorrow we have it. All right. Right at the end of this week's Torah portion, that finishes this mimer. So what do we learn? We learned that the name Tzava'ot of God is the ability to refine the world, and the Jewish people were called that name. Hashem Tzava'ot, they were called because they have the ability to elevate the world, the Jewish people. But the Jewish people, they're people. And the name of God is the power. This name Tzava'ot is the power to elevate the world. So the world becomes called Tzava'ot. The whole world becomes the hosts of God. Okay. At the end of this week's Torah portion, we have one of the 4 paragraphs that's put in your tefillin, if you wear tefillin. And if you don't wear tefillin, it's in tefillin. And a mezuzah, the commandment of mezuzah is mentioned twice in the Torah. Therefore, those 2 paragraphs are written in the mezuzah. And the commandment of putting on tefillin is mentioned 4 times in the Torah. And therefore, there's 4 parchments written in your tefillin. Okay, one of them says, in order that the Torah of God should be in your mouth, you should put the tefillin on, right? In order that you'll remember God, and then the Torah, you'll say the words of Torah, because the whole thing of the tefillin is sentences that are written in the Torah. So it says, in order that the Torah of God should be in your mouth, because biyad chazakah, with a strong hand, God took you out of Egypt. That's what the sentence says. The Torah should be in your mouth because with a powerful hand, God took you out of Egypt. Sentence. Okay, God can say whatever he wants to, but God gave the Torah so that we would understand it. Here seems to be a sentence that doesn't really make too much sense on the surface of the things. That the Torah should be in our mouth, and we should say the words of Torah because God took us out of Egypt. At first glance, this is very strange. Kima in Torah, Liatzias Mitzrayim. How is the Torah connected to going out of Egypt? That we have to mention that the Torah was one holiday, that was the holiday of Shavuot, and going out of Egypt is another holiday. True, if the Jews didn't get out of Egypt, they wouldn't have gotten the Torah. But the reason we're learning the Torah is not because we left Egypt. We're learning the Torah because God gave us the Torah. And the reason that we're Jews and we're free, because God took us out of Egypt. But what's it got specially to do with the Torah? Okay. So it says, the Havin in Torah. So let's understand, what is the Torah? It says like this, very interesting. Hine Kasiv, it says, Vayadaber Hashem, right in the beginning of this paragraph that was mentioned over here, that we just talked about. It starts like this. Vayadaber Hashem Moshe Lemor, God spoke to Moses and he said, Kadesh li kol bachor, sanctify for me every firstborn. This is before they sinned with the golden calf. The firstborn was supposed to be the priests. It says, make holy for me every firstborn. Right? That's what God said to Moses. God said to Moses, lay more to tell over to the Jewish people, Kadesh li kol bachor, sanctify all of the firstborn. But when Moses gave it over to the Jewish people, he didn't say what God told him to say. Amiris Moshe, when Moshe gave it over to the Jewish people, the same sentence. It says the next sentence. Vayomer Moshe Ala'am, Moses said to the people, Zachoret Yom Hazeh, remember this day that you went out of Egypt. And Kamo Rabim, there's a lot of sentences like this in the Torah, that God says one thing to Moses to give over to the Jews, and Moses gives something else over. He doesn't say what God told him. There's a lot of examples like this. Now, let's understand let's understand, in order to understand this, why God would say one thing to Moses, and Moses would say a different thing to the Jewish people, right? Everything God said to Moses, he said it in order that Moshe would give it over to the Jews. The Torah came from Moses' mouth. Everyone knew it was God speaking because everybody heard directly the first two commandments from God, but they couldn't take the revelation. So they said, Moshe, you say it. So everything they knew was from God. So God said, okay, Moses, this is what you should say to the Jews. X, Y, Z. What did Moses say to the Jewish people? A, B, C. Something different. Why? How could it possibly be such a? And that's written in the Torah. We see that Moses that's part of the Torah, that God said one thing to Moses and Moses gave a different thing to the Jews. We should know that. There was different. Let's understand this. We have to understand, what is the mitzvah of learning Torah, working it day and night, even though there's many, many laws in the Torah that aren't relevant now. Why should we learn laws that aren't relevant? Laws about the Holy Temple, laws about the Ben Sora or more. Why? As we'll talk about more tomorrow. Let's go. Stop recording.